Hello. Hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Yes, there we go. That's good. Sound and vision A-OK. Wonderful. Well, good evening. It's Becky here in the UK, and I live in the southwest, a place called Taunton, which is rather a lovely part of the country. And as I said last time we met, my take on peace is that I need to make peace within myself in order to spread peace outside myself. And I've been bumping right up against that this week with various things happening that have caused me a fair bit of turmoil. So, normal really. And I thought it might be nice this evening if we could get into a quiet space together and observe what's happening for each of us, and to bring some peace to that inner world. So I'd like to share a reading first, and then take a bit of time to explore what's going on inside, and then to conclude with a really short prayer. And when we do the going inside bit, you might want a pen and paper handy just to jot the odd word down. So if you want to go and get those now, I can say some things that won't matter if you miss them. I'm going to be using a little bit of background music for the meditation-y bit of our broadcast this evening. And the music is composed and played by somebody that I met at a retreat a few years ago. And she was a lovely girl, young girl, who had been given a terminal diagnosis very recently. And she's an artist, a photographer, a musician, and she'd recorded a short collection of pieces that she'd composed herself. And she was one of the most vibrantly alive people that I've met, even with this diagnosis hanging over her. And she sent me this recording, and it seems a fitting thing for going deeper into acceptance. So when we come to it, I hope that you enjoy it. I'd be interested to hear whether you can hear enough of it. So if anyone wants to pop anything in the chat window or comment window later on and let me know, that would be really, really good as well. So I'm going to start with a reading that I just liked. I'd be hard pressed to explain fully why this is relevant, but it feels relevant. So it's from this book, which, hang on, let's see, can you see it? Gosh, we are a few seconds delayed. Okay, I'm going to leave this here until I can see it. Okay, right, I'm looking at the wrong window. Hey ho. So it's Paulo Coelho, Manual of the Warrior of Light. And I'd like to read the prologue to you. Just off the beach, to the west of the village, lies an island, and on it is a vast temple with many bells, said the woman. The boy noticed that she was dressed strangely and had a veil covering her head. He'd never seen her before. Have you ever visited that temple? She asked. Go there and tell me what you think of it. And seduced by the woman's beauty, the boy went to the place she had indicated. He sat down on the beach and stared out at the horizon, but he saw only what he always saw, blue sky and ocean. Disappointed, he walked to a nearby fishing village and asked if anyone there knew about an island and a temple. Oh, that was many years ago when my great-grandparents were alive, said an old fisherman. There was an earthquake, and an island was swallowed up by the sea. But although we can no longer see the island, we can still hear the temple bells when the ocean sets them swinging down below. The boy went back to the beach and tried to hear the bells. He spent the whole afternoon there, but all he heard was the noise of the waves and the cries of the seagulls. When night fell, his parents came looking for him, and the following morning he went back to the beach. He could not believe that such a beautiful woman would have lied to him. If she ever returned, he could tell her that although he'd not seen the island, he'd heard the temple bells set ringing by the motion of the waves. Many months passed. The woman did not return, and the boy forgot all about her. Now he was convinced that he needed to discover the riches and treasures in the submerged temple. If he could hear the bells, he would be able to locate it and salvage the treasure hidden below. He lost interest in school and even in his friends. He became the butt of all the other children's jokes. They used to say, "He's not like us. He prefers to sit looking at the sea because he's afraid of being beaten in our games." And they all laughed to see the boy sitting on the shore. Although he could still not hear the old temple bells ringing, the boy learned about other things. He began to realise that he had grown used to the sound of the waves and that he was no longer distracted by them. Soon after that, he became used to the cries of the seagulls, the buzzing of the bees, and the wind blowing amongst the palm trees. 6 months after his first conversation with the woman, the boy could sit there oblivious to all other noises, but he still could not hear the bells from the drowned temple. Fishermen came and talked to him, insisting that they'd heard the bells, but the boy never did. Some time later, however, the fishermen changed their tune. "You spend far too much time thinking about the bells beneath the sea. Forget about them. Go back to playing with your friends. Perhaps it's only fishermen that can hear them." And after almost a year, the boy thought, perhaps they're right. I would do better to grow up and become a fisherman and come down to this beach every morning because I've come to love it here. And he thought too, perhaps it's just another legend and the bells were all shattered during the earthquake and have never rung out since. That afternoon, he decided to go back home. He walked down to the ocean to say goodbye. He looked once more at the natural world around him, and because he was no longer concerned about the bells, he could again smile at the beauty of the seagulls' cries, the roar of the sea and the wind blowing in the palm trees. Far off, he heard the sound of his friends playing, and he felt glad to think that he'd soon resume his childhood games. The boy was happy, and, as only a child can, he felt grateful for being alive. He was sure he had not wasted his time, for he had learned to contemplate nature and to respect it. And then, because he was listening to the sea, the seagulls, the wind in the palm trees, and the voices of his friends playing, he also heard the first bell, and then another, and then another, until to his great joy all the bells in the drowned temple were ringing. Years later, when he was a grown man, he returned to the village and to the beach of his childhood. He no longer dreamed of finding treasure at the bottom of the sea. Perhaps that had all been a product of his imagination, and he'd never really heard the submerged bells ring out on one lost childhood afternoon. Even so, he decided to walk for a while along the beach to listen to the noise of the wind and to the cries of the seagulls. Imagine his surprise when, there on the beach, he saw the woman who had first spoken to him about the island and its temple. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I was waiting for you," she replied. He noticed that, despite the passing years, the woman looked exactly the same. The veil hiding her hair had not faded with time. She handed him a blue notebook full of blank pages. "Write, a warrior of light values a child's eyes because they are able to look at the world without bitterness. When he wants to find out if the person beside him is worthy of his trust, he tries to see him as a child would. What is a warrior of light? You already know that, she replied with a smile. He is someone capable of understanding the miracle of life, of fighting to the last for something he believes in, and of hearing the bells that the waves set ringing on the seabed. He'd never thought of himself as a warrior of light. The woman seemed to read his thoughts. Everyone is capable of these things. And although no one thinks of themselves as a warrior of light, we all are. He looked at the blank pages of the book. The woman smiled again. Write about that warrior, she said. As I said, I'm not entirely sure why that feels relevant, but it does feel relevant, because part of coming to peace with ourselves is listening to ourselves, observing, being kind, and trusting. And so I'm inviting us to share a meditation about doing just that. If you'd like to get comfortable, I'm going to invite you to call to mind a situation that isn't sitting comfortably with you. It could be something as simple and as intimate as regularly waking up at night with a busy mind and struggling to get back to sleep. Or it could be something more external that is pressing your buttons. The signal here is a regular thought about it is, why am I getting so cross about this? It's nothing. So just take a moment to find a thing and to settle on it. Okay? Now, if you've found, as often I do, that you can't decide, well, just plump for one thing. It doesn't matter. It's not a test. Okay. So now, let's call that one thing to mind. As much as possible, get into that place. It's probably not a very comfortable place, and one that you spend a lot of energy trying to get away from. So there's likely to be a bit of resistance. There is for me. And let's try and treat it like, rather than actually going to jail, as it were, just visiting somebody there who we can really empathise with. I'll give us a minute to get there, get into that feeling, that thing that's not sitting comfortably, to be in that space. So, what's going on? First of all, let's notice what we're thinking about this. What we're thinking. Is the mind getting busy trying to rationalise, or argue about who's right, or persuade and make excuses about the justice of our stance, or judge ourselves harshly? Let's just notice the kind of thinking that's happening here. Not actually get on the bus and follow the thoughts, just notice the kind of thoughts. And again, a minute to do this. And still looking at what's going on. How are we feeling as opposed to thinking? Angry? Sad? Frustrated? Helpless? Maybe there's envy or disappointment or guilt. Let's not overanalyze or get caught up in a thought process about it, but just name it. Another 30 seconds. And now let's look at our body's response to this. Where in the body is this thing sitting? If you're not sure what that means, simply take a moment to relax the mind and notice the body. Somewhere there is some discomfort or tension, or just a feeling that's tied up with this issue we're exploring. And if you're like me and find this a bit difficult, give yourself a break. Don't get distracted by worrying about getting it right. Just scan your body anyway for any bit of tension or discomfort. It's all okay. And I'll give us a bit longer for this, a couple of minutes. So now for the peaceful bit. Here we are, a jittery bag of prickly thoughts, uncomfortable feelings and physical tension. Let's now remember together that we are as the Creator made us. I don't believe that God made me with imperfections so that he could point and laugh at me. I believe that my imperfections are the perfect imperfections for my journey through life. Let's observe our discomfort for a little while, as if we were our own guardian angel, gazing lovingly at this little person earnestly toiling away. Let's see how all our efforts and straining are trying to do their best for us. Let's practice self-compassion together. So first of all, the tension or pain or discomfort in the body. Let's visualize where it is. And now breathe God's love into our heart. 1, 2, 3. Breaths into the heart so that it glows like a brazier. And when we next breathe out, let's send that love to the tense, sore, achy, heavy parts of us. You can just place a hand on the hurty bit if that helps you to focus. Once more. So now for those thoughts. The judgment and the rationalisation and the excuses and the criticism, like an endless commentary. Why does our mind and our ego do this to us? Well, let's remember that it's trying to look after us. Move back into that guardian angel space and smile. Smile at the little yappy dog of the mind, attacking all that it doesn't understand, which is really quite a lot. Reach toward it, gently stroke it, soothe it. No need to bark, little one. No need to attack. Gently, gently, breathe compassion to the poor, busy, anxious part of us and invite it to rest. 1, 2, 3. Breaths into the heart. Feel God's love glowing there. And now sending love to our busy minds, sending compassion to all that effort and strain. Finally, the feelings. Just notice, is the hurt still there? Is it as big as before? Is it maybe calmer, smaller, more manageable? When I send love and compassion to my body and my mind, my feelings become less intense and scary. But let's send love and compassion to them as well. So you might visualize yourself as a small child and pull that child up onto your knee for a cuddle now. Or maybe it's easier for you to visualize your adult self and to mentally offer it a gift of flowers or a nice back rub. or a pint, whatever it might enjoy. Or even to embrace yourself right now in a big hug with the words, I love you. And if that's a bridge too far, then just affirm, I approve of myself. And keep affirming it till you believe it. This bag of bone and muscle and nerve and thoughts and emotions is all we have to work with. And we're raised by our culture to criticise it. But it's stuck with us through thick and thin, and it's got us this far. As we breathe in this time, let's imagine the golden light of love flowing in through our lungs, into our heart, out into our bloodstream, round every inch of this body, back to our heart. First breath. 1. Love this faithful friend. Second breath. 2. Love this loyal servant. Third breath. 3. Golden love light filling our body with peace and compassion. Now as we breathe out, first breath sending love into our own aura, completely encasing us. Second breath, overflowing the aura and filling the room we're in. A room filled with love. Third breath, our love seeps out under the door to fill the building we're in. And each sequential breath reaches exponentially further, by stages, to fill our street, our city, our state or county, our country, our continent, our planet. By loving ourselves, we can become living, walking hearts that circulate love to the world. I'll give us a minute to soak that up. And so now from this meditative space, let's gently release the golden light, like a balloon, into the universe. Gently return to your body, present in your room. Breathe. And take a moment to feel fingers and toes and look about you. By loving ourselves, we can become living, walking hearts that circulate love to the world. So to finish with a prayer. Change me, Divine, into one who can trust, relax, and move with the flow, following the Tao in my actions in every way. Let me trust that every true need is always met. Thank you for being with me this evening. Namaste.